death of dozens of children from acute kidney injuries in the Gambia.
After the deaths of 66 children in the Gambia.
Indian-made cough syrup and the deaths of more than 60 children in the Gambia.
The death of 66 children in the Gambia.
By an Indian drug company.
4 Indian-made cough and cold medicines.
In the Gambia.
66 children lost their lives in Gambia.
66 children have died of renal failure in the Gambia.
The Gambia.
Gambia.
The Gambia.
The Gambia.
In the Gambia.
In the Gambia.
The Gambia.
Unacceptable amounts of diethylene glycol and ethylene glycol.
Now imagine this. There has been a sudden outbreak of acute kidney injury in your country. A disease most commonly seen in people over the age of 65 years old. But you realize that it is killing children as young as 5 months old. Over the course of a few months, the number of deaths kept on increasing as more children perish. Your government didn't make any comment on the situation until the World Health Organization issued a global alert on the issue. That's when your president decided to address the issue officially. You didn't realize that your country lacks the infrastructure to test drugs for safety before approving them for widespread use. Suppliers are bringing in drugs that are harmful to the society, especially to the poor. And no one has ever raised the issue until innocent lives were lost. This is the current state of the Gambia's health sector. It was on the 26th of July 2022. The Epidemiology and Disease Unit received a report from a concerned nephrologist of a sudden rise in acute kidney injury among children aged 5 months to 4 years. About 2 weeks later, on the 8th of August, the EDC, through the Ministry of Health, issued a report on the acute kidney injury. At that point, there were 32 reported cases of acute kidney injury and 28 deaths, a fatality rate of 87.5%. Since then, the number of deaths has more than doubled. The World Health Organization recently issued an alert warning that the deaths could be linked to products manufactured by the Indian pharmaceutical company Maiden Pharmaceuticals, a company that does not sell products in India but instead only exports. Until now, the company has failed to prove that their products are safe. They were silent on this matter until October 8th, when they issued a statement that contained no useful information. The drugs identified as the source of this health disaster were retrieved from homes by the Gambia Red Cross as part of an action launched by the WHO and the Ministry of Health. The drugs identified as the source of these health crises are promethazine oral solution, cofexmalin baby cough syrup, Macof baby cough syrup, and Magrib and cold syrup. These products were all manufactured by Maiden Pharmaceuticals. Products that were supposed to end coughing and cold in children left them with something much scarier, something deadly, acute kidney injury. According to the WHO, these drugs contain unacceptable amounts of diethylene glycol and ethylene glycol, which are toxic to humans when consumed and can be fatal. According to a study, the chemicals in diethylene glycol are used in antifreeze, brake fluids, cosmetics, and lubricants. And these chemicals cause renal insufficiency and failure and could even lead to coma and death. In fact, this isn't the first time that deaths have been linked to the presence of diethylene glycol in cough syrups. In Bangladesh, between 1990 and 1992, 339 children developed kidney failure, and most of them died after being given paracetamol syrup contaminated with diethylene glycol. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, said in 2009 that the Nigerian Federal Ministry of Health had received reports of 13 cases of unexplained acute renal failure among children from a hospital in Lagos State. These patients had been exposed to a threatening medication, which the Nigerian authorities discovered had been contaminated by diethylene glycol. In Panama, over 100 people died from diethylene glycol poisoning in 2006. In 2020, 9 children had died in the Indian state of Jammu because of the presence of a poisonous compound in a cough syrup manufactured by Digital Vision. And that poisonous compound was later found to be diethylene glycol. The effect of diethylene glycol on humans include abdominal pain, vomiting, diarrhea, inability to pass urine, headache, altered mental state, and of course, acute kidney injury. According to India's Central Drug Standard Control Organization, the manufacturer, Maiden Pharma, had only supplied the contaminated medications to the Gambia. This statement is so untrue because India manufactures almost half of the world's medicine and provide most of the drugs bought by African countries. And Maiden Pharma even stated on their website that they have an annual production capacity of 2.2 million syrup bottles, 600 million capsules, 18 million injections, 300,000 ointment tubes, and 1.2 billion tablets. And they export to Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Maiden Pharma has a global presence with a strong concentration in Africa, so there's a high chance that these products that caused the health disaster in Gambia were also exported to other African countries that don't have the facilities to test substandard drugs. In their statement released on October 8th, Maiden Pharma noted that they only export and do not make drugs for domestic use. This begs the question of whether it is credible or not. Not being allowed to sell something to your fellow country people, but allowed to sell to less privileged areas of the world, makes the situation shady. Maiden Pharma, being such a big company that has been operating for over 25 years, cannot act like they didn't know that their drugs contain unacceptable amounts of toxic compounds which could cause death. Yet, they put it in the market. Is it greed? Lack of care for people's well-being? Or is it a mixture of both? Suppliers are also a big part in this, as they are the middlemen between producers and consumers. Their role is important because they determine whether people get good quality drugs or not. A disaster like this shows that some suppliers will sell anything they can get their hands on, even if they know that it isn't legitimate. Greed also comes into play here. A supplier who doesn't mind selling substandard drugs because they are on the cheaper side is a detriment to society. According to a recent statement from the Gambia police force, a company called Pharmaceuticals had single-handedly ordered 50,000 bottles of contaminated cough syrup. As at now, the police have confiscated about 42,000 of them, while the remaining 8,000 are unaccounted for. Pharmaceuticals were actually licensed by the Medicines Control Agency of the Gambia. The MCA has a list of 19 licensed pharmaceuticals importers. Chances are there are at least 5 more importers on that list who are importing substandard drugs in the Gambia. Moving forward, we must wonder how many dangerous drugs are being circulated among innocent Gambians without anyone's knowledge. The worst part is that these substandard drugs are less expensive and more in line with the budget of the less fortunate. Not everyone can afford the best drugs and healthcare in the world, but MCA should make sure that there are no drugs on any pharmacy's shelf that will harm its customers. It is about time that we prioritize the well-being of our citizens over profit and personal gain. On October 7th, Gambia's President Adama Barrow issued a statement on the matter. He stated in it that the 66 children who died had received the best medical attention possible. He also stated that the 66 child deaths make a little difference in comparison to previous data for similar periods. Many people were outraged by the statement because they believe it minimized the government's alleged negligence and does not place enough emphasis on the victims and their grieving families. The president also stated that a quality control lab will be established at the Medical Control Agency. This raises the question of whether the government is proactive enough, putting out fires rather than preventing them in the first place. It's easy to understand why people are angry at the government because the deaths of 70+ children, which should be, a national tragedy, is being brushed under the rug so the government can save face and avoid admitting its mistakes. Vital questions. How and why are substandard drugs making their way into the Gambia? What regulations are in place to stop them from doing so? Are importers and pharmacists vetted to ensure their licenses are legitimate? What will be done to ensure a disaster of this magnitude will not repeat itself? Let me know in the comments below. Seeing how fragile the Gambia's healthcare system is, prevention is vital because drugs that are supposed to end our sicknesses bring us more sickness, simply because the people in charge put themselves first instead of the people that put them in charge. For now, it is critical that we remember that innocent lives were lost as a result of negligence and greed, and that each of us in our own small way must do something to ensure that this unacceptable reality does not occur again. With that said, thank you so much for watching. Please, I'd really appreciate it if you share this video and subscribe to the channel. Peace.